Hey guys, so today I want to talk to you guys about hypocrisy and specifically in the context of the part of the Bible that we're reading today. The story that we're reading in Matthew today and how it pertains to hypocrisy. And it's a perfect time for us to discuss hypocrisy or the implications of hypocrisy in our day-to-day lives in 2025. Because I've said it on the last few videos, and I'll say it again, that Jesus is the same today, yesterday, and forever. And that's in Hebrews chapter 13, I think, is where you'll find that verse. So you can rest assured that it is breathed from the mouth of God. Those are His words that He spoke. And we know this to be true by reading about Jesus and figuring out who He is from reading about Him. And basically using our skills of observation to determine this. I say that because we see Jesus saying things 2,000 years ago that are still holding true today. And that's the thing that I think is ironic about when people say that the Bible is outdated. It's not outdated. It's just that was the time in which God used, and the people that He used in order to establish His principles. And so it doesn't really matter what the time was or what the setting was like. That even if iPhones were included in the Bible and Noah built the ark like with an electric Tesla battery, and if that's how the story went, it's not really about the miraculous as much as it is just being there with God and having your heart shifted towards Him. Your heart is really what the foundation of all this is. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit deeper today. And we'll spend some time talking about that stuff because it truly is the basis of everything that we're operating off of. When we say that we are following Christ and that we are advocating for God and, pro-God, pro-theist, pro-Jesus. And I mean pro-Jesus as you've given your entire life to Him and you're serving Him and not anything else. And so hypocrisy has a very negative derogatory taste to it, and it is derogatory. I don't know if being a hypocrite in any light is a positive thing unless they're wrong. And so let's get into it. Hypocrisy and kind of how that goes today in 2025, as far as us being imperfect people that are striving towards perfection. Our process of sanctification is the church word that people use in the theological world. But for our purposes here today, since we're not having a theological debate, because I prefer not to do that. I prefer to have a talk with you, just like this, in layman's terms. I don't want to confuse you. I don't want to flex my intellectual muscles on you. I just want to tell you about Jesus and how much He means to me, and what He's done for me, and what He can do for you too. That's the only thing I want to get to you today. That's the only message I want you to receive from my time being here. That is all that I want, is for you to know Jesus. And I believe that at some point in time you've wondered, Braxton, why do you do this? What drives you to, how could you have this much passion? How could you have whatever to drive you to this point to where you're talking about Jesus every single day. And you've been doing it for about 4 years now. God forbid anything happen and I discontinue doing this, because I think that'd be a foolish decision on my part, with the platform and the situation and the circumstances that I've been put in to be standing here before you today. What would motivate a man to do that? And there's only one answer, and it's satisfaction. It's satisfaction in the time that I've given to God since I started giving Him my time. Since I've started giving my time to Jesus and the kingdom that God has built before the earth was founded and continues to stand today, that kingdom, I want to be building that kingdom up, and I want to be working for God in everything that I do. And that is going to start at your heart. That's why I say that, because it does matter about your heart, and it's the only thing that matters. Like I said, I don't really want to get into that right now. I had a really great thing to say, and I lost it. But just continuing on this path that we're on right now, taking it one step at a time, one breath at a time. And something that I've realized is that when you slow things down, it makes things a lot more, it makes you more perceptive to things that are happening. And I truly believe that when you have a relationship with God, and you talk to Him every day, and you make your priorities about whatever He wants, that slowing down and that focus is charged up. You get more of it when you spend time with God, and it just fuels this process of healing. It fuels this process of your purpose and your journey that you're walking down. It fuels it and it creates it. And every time that you are turning your heart away from what you want to do and what other people want you to do, that isn't what God has wanted you to do and asked you to do, that you are consistently being shaped and molded. And with that shaping and molding comes peace. With that shaping and molding comes patience. With that shaping and molding comes joy. And with joy and peace and patience, you are put in a place where you can accomplish anything that you desire. You are able to walk confidently. You're able to walk in peace. Peace of mind is undersold. We undersell that like it's something that everybody has. But if you go around and you actually speak to people and you listen to what they have to say, there's a lot of people going through hell right now that you would never even know about. And that's why what you see with your eyes is very deceptive a lot of the times. God's spoken to me in the past and told me personally, hey, things aren't what you think they are. Things aren't what they look like, and things aren't what they seem. Because it goes a lot deeper than just surface level eye, and to ear. It goes a lot deeper than that. And I believe what happens in those depths, as we speak about these deep things, that in that area, in the depths, down there is where the real stuff happens, is where the messy stuff happens, is where the change happens. When nobody's looking is really what it is because when you know that people can't see your thoughts and you know that people don't know how you really feel, you're essentially alone. And the funny thing is, you think you're alone. You're not really alone. God is with you the whole way through it. He knows what you're thinking. He was here before you got here, dog. And He's going to be here after. He's going to be here the whole time. This is what I like to, and I've been wanting to say this because I thought about this earlier today, and now I think is an excellent time to transition, just even though I didn't really take you. Anyways, forget that. New thing. Even though what I said is true, and I do want to keep talking about it and capitalizing, but I'll take this time to talk about this other point, though. That when you think that you deserve stuff, or when you believe that you've got it figured out, and that you don't need God, and that you're going to live the life that you want to live, and you're basically justifying the things that you do that make you a little uncomfortable for the sake of your own comfort, as ironic as that is. And let me give you an example. You go out and you have sex with as many different women, or if you're a woman, men that you possibly can, because you want your flesh. Your flesh is craving that stuff, and so you gratify it. And you continue to gratify it because it feels good, and it makes you comfortable, and it brings comfort to you. But the irony of that is that the same thing that you are seeking to bring you comfort is actually bringing you discomfort, because immediately after you get your fill of what you wanted, you start to feel bad. You start to feel shame. You start to feel exactly the way what you were running from, but even worse now, because you filled yourself up with more of it. And that's what Jesus wants for you to do, is to drop that stuff so you'll be feeling better. He came, he said that, he said in a metaphor or an analogy, he used a doctor as an example of what he was doing. He said that doctors come to heal the sick and not the healthy. And so that's exactly what Jesus came here to do. He came here to heal sick people. And if you're like me, a human being who has fallen short of the glory of God, which is everybody has fallen short and sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You are not a part of the glory of God unless you get yourself on the same level as Him. And there's only two options you have for that. One is you are absolutely perfect and you never mess up. Then you can contend. That's never going to happen. Your only other option now is to take the gift that He's given to you. What gift? Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose again in 3 days. Yeah, I know people say that, but when you apply what that means on a day-to-day, when you implement those truths into your life, into your reality, you make those things that are written about Jesus dying and resurrecting, and you implement those into your life, you make those the thoughts that you have that come from that, then you start to experience why Jesus dying on the cross is so important. The thing that people have vomited out of their mouth for many years now, ever since it happened, trying to tell people about it. And this is me doing the same thing, but I'm telling you, it goes much deeper. And remember, we discussed about how when you're alone, that's basically the depths in which your character is developed and your choices are made, the important choices. And I say they're important because what you do behind closed doors is going to affect what you do outside of those doors. And if you are treating yourself negatively by, feeding yourself substances, too much of them behind closed doors, or if you're feeding your mind pornography, naked pictures of other naked people for your own pleasure, that's going to affect you negatively. And all this stuff that nobody would ever tell anybody that they do behind closed doors, those are the things that that we have to deal with as people, as a people. And what you do behind those closed doors is totally up to you. But what God is saying is that He wants you to be doing what He wants you to do behind those closed doors. Because in that giving up what you want, in that not being comfortable, you get what you want. And so before we talk about hypocrisy and the implications of you messing up and not being perfect, and talking about the implications, all the stuff about Jesus dying on the cross and how we can put it into our own lives, I just want to say, I forgot exactly what I was talking about, but we're going to talk about hypocrisy today and kind of the being behind closed doors shapes who you are and your character. And I came to this realization when I was speaking previously. I said it was ironic that we do the things that we want to bring contentment and they actually bring discontentment. And what Jesus tells us is exactly the opposite of the way that we think. And I think God's a genius, and I mean this, I think God's a genius because He made it to where everything that you would have expected to be true based on your sight and your hearing physically is totally the opposite of how it really is. For example, instead of feeding yourself what your flesh desires and what you want to make yourself comfortable, and then it will in turn make you uncomfortable by having everything you want and being discomforted because you've basically been wallowing in your own comfort. That's cost you, it's cost you great things. And God says that you are to be discontent in order to be content. And this principle is a wild thing. Like I said, it's opposite of what we believe to be true based on our sight and our senses. But that's the perfect thing for God to have done because it truly brings the heart of the man to His presence. It truly clears out everything else and just leaves what's in your heart left. And so that's why this topic of discussion about hypocrisy is so important. And so first I'll read you what the Bible says and where we're kind of teaching out of and why we're talking about hypocrisy and what Jesus said, speaking to these people directly, the scribes and the Pharisees, to them about hypocrisy. And then we'll talk about hypocrisy in our lives today, and kind of where it comes in at. And so I'm not going to read all of this to you, but I am going to give you the gist, and you can go and read it for yourself if you want. So we're in Matthew chapter 23, and basically through this whole chapter, and we're going to blow through chapter 23 today and start on chapter 24 on the next video, but basically this whole chapter, Jesus is rebuking the scribes and the Pharisees, and He's basically proclaiming woes to them, which is a rebuke. He's basically saying, you guys are headed for destruction, and this is why. And I'll read you something that I highlighted out of it. And call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Christ. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. This is what I meant when I said things are opposite. He does it again. He verbally says this out loud in many different ways at many different times throughout the Gospels. But He says, whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. I like this, and I want to point this out specifically because He's pronouncing woes on them, but He also wants them to understand. He wants us to understand that you're to look at it like this when you are with God and you're serving Him. Call no man your father, because you have one Father. He's the most important, who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Christ. He's letting you know this is how you're to be walking, as if you have one instructor, as if you have one person to serve, as if you have one Father on earth. And then he says, the greatest among you will be your servant. And so the greatest among us is the person who's the richest in the eyes of human beings, just based on our own feelings and emotions. I think there is a sense of jealousy that comes in, and that's what fuels the whole thing anyways, is envy and covetousness. You wanting what you don't have. And so you glorify the person who has what you don't have. You pay attention to them. You think they're so much greater than you because they have the thing that you want, and you don't, and so you do that, and that's how you go through it in your mind. And Jesus says that the greatest among you will be your servant. And so when you count the apples and oranges and it comes down to brass tacks, and you're analyzing and you're choosing, making decisions, the person that you're going to want to go with is going to be the person, if you had to be stuck with somebody, because that's basically your choice right now. There's a bunch of people around, all over the town that I'm in right now. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are rich, some of them are poor. But if I had to pick somebody to be with, and the greatest, it's going to be someone that I know is going to take care of business. And people don't take care of business by serving themselves. All they do is take care of themselves that way. You take care of business by serving everybody else except for yourself, as best as you possibly can. And so in order to be the greatest, Jesus tells us we have to humble ourselves, because the humble will be exalted, and the exalted will be humbled. And the greatest among you is the servant. And that's kind of why it works that way, because nobody thinks anybody's great when you're one-on-one with them, and they only care about themselves, and they only care about their wealth and maintaining it, and you don't care when you actually need them to be a human being with feelings, emotions, and be able to reciprocate and communicate and take care of each other and love each other. Nobody wants to be around somebody who doesn't love somebody, the way that they would want to be loved, like the way God has asked you to do it. And that's why he told us in the last little bit that we talked about on the last video, the paragraph above this is where he says that the greatest commandment is this, that you love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Because if you can't do that by yourself, and you can't have a connection with God by yourself and cherish the values that God demonstrates through his character all throughout the Bible and through Jesus Christ, then you're not going to be able to love anybody else that way. I went to business school, and in business school they taught us that you have to love yourself. You have to be in tune with yourself in order to guide and manage other people. You can't manage some other people group without managing yourself, and it's definitely true. So basically, in this, I know we've gotten off topic, and I'll get to our topic of discussion: hypocrisy. Basically, these people are hypocrites. Jesus said to the crowds and the disciples, the scribes and Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, so do and observe what they tell you, but not the works they do, for they preach and do not practice. They take up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad. I just don't even know what that word is. And their fringes long, and they love the place of honor at the feasts, and the best seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the marketplace, and being called rabbi. But woe to you, scribes, hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in the people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves, nor allow those who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, you travel across the sea and land to make a single proselyte, when when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as you yourselves. Woe to you, blind guides! If anyone swears by the temple, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by oath. You blind fools, for which is greater, the gold of the temple that has made the gold sacred? And basically, he goes through like 7 paragraphs like this, just telling them, woe to you hypocrites, and giving them all these different reasons why they're hypocrites. And that's how this chapter goes. And so I want to talk about, and I know we've been talking for a long time, and you haven't gotten what you were promised yet. I promise I'm giving it to you right now. I'm talking about hypocrisy in today's world, because I'm sure you get the picture after hearing the few brief things that I read out of chapter 23. It goes on like that for the whole chapter, and then Jesus laments over Jerusalem as a whole, and he basically is like, if you don't change your ways, you're done, which is accurate at any point in time. It still holds true today. And so talking about today and hypocrisy today, how do I know if I'm being a hypocrite? I mean, I guess you know that you're doing it. I suppose you just make that choice on your own. Or maybe, I've always thought that maybe I could be getting duped without even knowing it. But when I was introduced to Jesus and realizing that he is the final and deepest foundation, then I realized that I can't be duped because I know the truth. And so maybe I thought this, and I thought I wasn't a hypocrite, and I was, and I'm just like the Pharisees and all that stuff. But I believe after doing some thinking about it, and I've thought about this for quite some time, and I'm probably not finished thinking about it, but in the moment, at this point in time, I'm thinking that you know if you are doing that or not. It's simple. It's not complex. I think I myself have a tendency to overcomplicate things as well as other people. It's not complex. As far as Jesus and God and who they are and if they're the same in their relationship and what the deal with that is, I tell people, just keep it simple, man. What do you do every day? You walk around, go to work. It really is that simple. And you talk to people and you interact and you make things happen. Well, God and Jesus are the same way. God is the Father and Jesus is the Son. Jesus is, was just the vessel that God used to make his plans work. And he's been doing that for a long time. It just so happened that this plan has been executed in the way that he chose it to be. And I truly believe that, and I know it to be true, that God has made moves many, many, many years advance to trickle effect, literally butterfly effect his way into making things that haven't even happened in my life happen from a long time ago. I mean, he's always working, he's always moving for you, and he's for you. He's not against you. If you are worshiping God, if you are giving your heart to God, if you turn to God at any point in time and you say, I need you, if you reach out to him, he's for you, dude. He will never turn you down unless you die and you're at the gates and then you missed your chance. But he'll always respond to you. He's for you. He is not against you. And I had to specify because he does oppose his face from the proud and the haughty and the people who wait and lie for blood, and it's just wild because you have a choice to do this, and if you've chosen to not even care and do that, then God will oppose you, and it says that in the Bible. It's biblical, and so that's why I kind of have to clarify that a little bit. But he's not against you; he's for you. I'm sure I'm talking to somebody who's probably seeking out God. If you're listening to this right now, it's true. And so, as far as how, what about the hypocrites? How do I know I'm not a hypocrite? Because I thought that for a long time, so I can definitely relate to that, and we can talk about it that way. I could do that with ease. It's just, Where's your heart at? And we talked about that at the beginning. Where's your heart at? Are you trying to do what God has asked you to do, or are you not? It's just, you have to be honest with yourself, and you can't BS yourself. Like, no more BS. Are you telling yourself the truth or not? If you were to look at somebody and tell somebody something, would it be 100% true, or would it not be? And so the thing is, you're not even saved by you being a good person. You're saved by Jesus dying on the cross. And like I said, just the way that God chose to do it. His plan of redemption, you can hop on the bus with that. And this is why you have to hop on the bus, is because really, you being here today is a miracle in the standpoint of thinking. Think about it like this. God makes creation. Creation sins against him. They go and do their own will as opposed to serving him. When he has done nothing wrong, he doesn't deserve it, and you're basically inflicting pain upon him, and he's done nothing wrong. In that circumstance, in any courtroom, in any place, people would say, whoever did that to you deserves punishment. And that would be every single one of us, because we hurt God when we sin, when we turn away from him, because he loves us that much. He loves you like his son, because you are his son. He loves you more than your parents or anyone who loves you right now that's on the top of your list for how much they love you. He loves you more than they do. And so imagine you did that to him and broke his heart. He would have every justification to just snap his finger and end this whole project. The earth, plants, animals, humans. On the seventh day he rests, and then the serpent comes, tempts the humans. They turn away from God. He has every right to end their life, but he doesn't. He lets more he lets us stay here. He lets Adam and Eve produce more offspring, and then it turns into what it has today. And he executes this plan of redemption through Jesus. And then we get to 2025. So he's done all this. He's been very merciful with us, patient, kind to us. We don't deserve this, guys. So my point is, you will never be good enough to get yourself into heaven that way. But there is the way that he's offered you, and that's redemption, and you turning to him and asking him for forgiveness, and basically trying to do better. Are you trying, or are you not? And that's how you figure out if what you're doing is hypocritical. And everyone's going to be a hypocrite at some point in time. That's why we're all in the same boat as sinners. The idea is to limit how much that happens and to cut it back until it's completely cut off and it doesn't exist inside of you anymore. And that's a beautiful idea, but you'll always have things that you struggle with. And once you beat one demon that you're facing, the things you struggle with, they call them demons. Once you overcome one of your demons, another one will appear. And once you get over lust, then pride will come. And all of these things happen this way. And so you'll never be perfect. But the idea is that you remember why you're doing it. You remember who you're doing it for. You remember who God is and what he said. Because if you know who he is and you know what he wants from you, then you won't become like these hypocrites, and you won't be a hypocrite. It's not how it works. If your heart is trying, then nobody can accuse you of being a hypocrite except for someone who's trying to condemn you, which is the devil. He's the only person who's going to pull that card on you, and he does pull it on you, and it happens. You're going to have a voice inside your head that says you're a hypocrite, or you don't deserve to be forgiven. Like all this stuff. And it's just a lie to slow you down, because Satan knows that at the end of the day, God will forgive anybody who asks him. And after that, you're clean. And yeah, you still have to deal with consequences. Don't ever think when I say you're clean that you don't have to deal with consequences, because that's just how it works here on planet Earth. If you haven't realized that by now, check in. There's consequences. But the deal is that you can have healing in your soul, because you can have one-on-one alone time with God in your heart, in your mind, by yourself. You can serve him, and that is the greatest healing that anybody could have ever given you, is one-on-one time with God. Greatest healing he could have ever given us. And so the way He has this whole thing set up is beautiful, and you just kind of have to do it, and you have to try. And if you're not trying, and you're lying and having a two-face and double life, and it's going to come out eventually, and so I would say don't do that, and ask for forgiveness and try and do what God has asked you to do. I'll finish with this verse in Luke chapter 6, verse, I think it's 43 or 39 is where it starts. But anyway, it's in Luke chapter 6 at the end of it, and it says that, and this is a quote, Jesus says, why do you say to me, Lord, Lord, and not do, why do you ask me, Lord, Lord, call to me, Lord, Lord, and don't do what I ask you to? And then he goes on to specify that a person who hears the words and doesn't listen to them is like somebody who built his house on the sand. And when the storm comes, which it is, it's coming for you, it will knock your house over, and the ruin of that house will be great. And so if you know what God's word says and you're not doing it, I would say try to do it, and that's going to be the beginning to the journey of your healing, of the most important part and the foundational part of God and His kingdom is your heart, and making that directed towards Him. So that's all we have. I know it was a really, really long one. If you're still watching, God bless you. I didn't know people watch this far into my videos, but yeah, so I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope this was helpful for you. And if I could find the remote, I would click off of it. But I don't know where it went, so we're just raw dogging it now. We're raw dogging it. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. But anyways, yeah, I'll turn the video off and let you get on with your day.